All right. Whew. Here we are. April 2023, JSEMP program. We're unfolding a theme this year, which is about healing our core traumas by bringing the dissociation back together, bringing the emotion and the thought back together so that what we call a trauma, which is really like an energy block that's held somewhere in our body and one of our bodies in our energy field, can finally receive new energy, receive our conscious energy into it so that it's able to dissolve and that energy come back into our system as energy that's available for the entire system. And the whole goal of doing this is because anywhere in our body where we hold trauma, the core star, the essence, your essence energy isn't able to flow through it completely. It has to kind of go around it. And when we create something, it goes all the way out, all the way into the physical. And then the next part of creation is to bring it back through the physical, the etheric, the hera, back into the core star level to create more light. And that creation of more light expands our essence, expands our individuated essence. We are literally becoming more luminous, lighter, as in less dense and heavy, but also more luminous and radiant. So our entire goal this year revolves around that constantly. That's always the theme. We're getting a deeper and deeper cognitive understanding of how traumas work, how it gets stored in the body, and how we can go and actually heal and bring these energies back into like a holistic unit of yourself, so that what there is in you is a healthy adult self and not a wounded inner child. And it's kind of a little bit of a paradox. I've talked about it a couple of times already, but really what we call our inner child is crystallizations of energy that happened at moments before we were, like most traumas happen before we're 9 years old. And we can go even deeper and say that almost everything plays out by the time you're 6. And I want to go explore this a little bit tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about what happens as your brain is growing, because what we call the inner child most of the time is a piece of our energy that's stuck in time. It's frozen at a specific moment when we're a specific age and has an understanding of reality that corresponds to the level of development of the brain at that time. So we're talking a childlike brain and an unevolved consciousness. And this is not judgmental. It's not like, oh, you're not evolved. It's not like that. It's just the way you think when you're 3 or when you're 1 or when you're 7 is not at all the same as the way you're able to think when you're 30. The problem is that the parts of us that are crystallized and stuck in an energy block and a trauma are still thinking like that. They have not evolved. They have not been brought back into the central line where they can be accessible energy to the adult self that you are. And that's our goal, because the opposite of a healthy adult self is what we generally call our ego, which is a whole set of programs and a way of viewing the world and of thinking, living in a world of separation and 3D reality, where if you take something from me, I lose it, and all these kind of logical reasonings that are affected by programs that are coming from deeper in the brain. We clear the programs, we heal the traumas, the energy flow of information can actually make it into our adult prefrontal cortex, where the actual information processing that an adult can do takes place. So I've talked about it different ways, and tonight I really want to hone in to talking about the actual brain structure, the physical brain structure that we have and how it's made. It has 4 layers. And we share the first layer with all reptiles. That's called the reptilian brain or the brain stem, the survival brain. It's very, very, very rudimentary. It is about survival. It ensures that, fight, flight, freeze, reproduction, food. That's pretty much it. That's the goal of the reptilian brain. It's a super powerful brain because if someone is about to attack you, that's the part of your brain that will help you out. If you're about to put your hand on a burner and burn yourself, that's the part of your brain that will get your hand off of there before you ever have a chance to have a freaking debate about, oh, that burns, maybe I should take my hand off of there. So that part of the brain is super important. It's pure reflex. So we've got that brain stem, reptilian brain. On top of that, we have the limbic brain, which is the mammalian brain. So this is the same brain that we share with all the warm-blooded animals. So this brain is a little bit more complex. It's not about instincts. It's about feelings and emotions. And it's about, how do I ensure that I am safe in the group that I'm in? How do I ensure that I have a role in the tribe and I am accepted by the tribe? How do I make sure that I am loved? How do I make sure that I receive the nurturing that I need? So it's more complex, but it's still kind of rudimentary. Like, I'm really going to hone into these two tonight, but I just want to give you the full view of the 4 layers of the brain. So you've got reptilian, lizards, limbic, mammals, cortex, monkey. Okay, so cortex, we're hitting a new level of development. This is like the part of your brain that can figure out puzzles. This is the part of your brain that can figure out how to open a nut by cracking a rock on it until it breaks, and then you can actually eat the nut. Super important part of the brain, and absolutely what has allowed us to, build a whole bunch of tools and develop the capacity for abstract thought. Super important. Just in parentheses, sociopaths are people that are functioning mostly only from the cortex and have had a dissociation with the emotional and instinctual brain, which is a little bit scary because you want these lower parts working because they are what allow you to understand how to protect your body and how to protect others, and as well how to belong in a group, and actually, understand the roles and the give and take that are necessary in a world in order for an ecosystem to function. So, lizard, mammal, monkey, reptilian, limbic, cortex, and then we got this thing going on here. It's like literally like this. The neocortex, or the prefrontal cortex, they call it. This thing is what develops between 20 and 25 years old. This part of our brain is the part that's able of deeply creative thinking, of super long-term thinking, of understanding the consequences of actions 20, 30, 40, 100, 200 years in the future. That cortex isn't doing that. That cortex is like, I have a nut, I have a rock. What happens if I do that? Oh, that did something. It's still thinking kind of short term. This is the most important part of the human brain. This is what separates us from the reptiles and the mammals and the monkeys. Deeply creative, intuitive capacities in this part of our brain. Now, the issue that shows up is that the way information is processed, when you receive information from the outer world, it doesn't come through here. It goes like this. The first part of your brain that will interpret the information you're receiving is your survival brain. Can this kill me? First off. Secondly, it'll go into the mammalian brain. How do I make sure that, I'm safe emotionally? Then it'll get up to the cortex, and then it'll get to the prefrontal cortex. The issue with this is that it gets filtered through the programs that are in these parts of our brain. A wound or a trauma creates a program in these lower parts of the brain that ensure your physical survival and your emotional safety. By the time it's able to get up to the cortex and to the prefrontal cortex, it's already been tainted. It's already been treated by information centers that have created a perspective on how you're looking at it that doesn't really allow you to process the new information. The information is new, but it's getting processed through programs. So you're not even able to fully just receive the information with the part of your mind that can actually process new information, right? Because these parts of the brain are by repetition. The prefrontal cortex can process absolutely new information that has never been received or seen, and kind of like, wow, ponder and contemplate and introspect. That's what this part of the brain is able to do. Almost no humans have no programs that are filtering out the information before it gets there. So by the time it gets there, it's not neutral. It's not, I don't know what the right word I could use for that is. I want to say tainted, but I don't want it to sound like a judgment. It's not that. It's just, it's been filtered through the belief system, your BS system, and the map of reality that you built in order to feel safe. This is very problematic because we have expectations. If you grew up in an environment where people were violent or abusive with you, and someone new comes into your life and says, hey, I want to be your friend, or I love you, or whatever, it's going to get processed through there before it ever comes to the front. And it creates expectations. Your map of reality is like the outskirts of how far you can go into the world and into your understanding. And so someone could be coming to you with something beautiful, but if you have programming telling you people come and offer me things, but really it's because they want to manipulate me, what are the chances that you'll be able to truly see what they're bringing? And I would even say this opposite as well. If you live in this like fantasy world where you're just like constantly doing positive optimism, and then something happens that isn't what you want it to happen based on that expectation, you might not be able to see the value of what's happening. You might not be able to see how valuable the teaching you're receiving is. It's like, oh, I wasn't the way I wanted it to be. Oh, well. And then you're not seeing, you're not really seeing. You're not seeing third eye, prefrontal. So that's why we want to heal our trauma. That's why we want to expand our map of reality to go way beyond what the child in us, what the childlike consciousness in us decided was reality, so that we can actually be in real time, so that we can actually be in presence where we can receive and interpret information in real time, based on what's going on around us, not based on what's going on in a part of our brain that's in a reaction to something that happened when we were 3 years old. So that's the value of doing healing work. And that is an incredible value, because these parts of your brain, once you have cleared them of erroneous programs that are keeping you in reactive, fearful states, these parts of your brain are super powerful. They are super powerful parts of your brain. The energy you need to do things comes from there. The energy you need in order to be able to enforce a boundary in real time when it's time to do it comes from there. The energy you need to save your child from getting hit by a car comes from there. It's like these, man, if you can get your limbic brain and your reptilian brain back on track with your higher intent, that hairline, your ability to be in positive intent, there isn't much you won't be able to do. And furthermore, your core star energy will be able to flow easily in and out, no problem. Then you can create more light, bring more light in, then bring more light out and in and out. And the more of us doing this, the more we'll be able to expand. Well, joyful soul expansion, the more we'll be able to expand into our natural state, which is joy. What we tend to call the inner child is really just our natural state as souls. We are here to play. We are here to embody joy. We are here to express love. We are here to just expand the light, increase, transmute, just the whole yummy, fun roller coaster ride of getting to play as a spirit in a physical body. So, yes. So this is like a super, super interesting thing to understand. Any information coming at you will always be processed by your survival brain and your emotional brain before it'll ever get to your cortex or your neocortex. Something else I want to say about this, because it's really interesting. When we talk about how trauma happens and, something happens, you're 3, whatever, you drop a glass, your mom screams at you, freak out. There's an intense emotion that's experienced. Your survival system's like, this hurts, this is dangerous. Separates, it splits off what you're feeling from you being in your mind, where you can be like, okay, what I need to do, what I need to do to be safe. Okay, so pick up the glass, say I'm sorry, never try to help my mom again, whatever conclusion you come up with. For the part of you that went through that, it is still going through that right now. The part of you that's dissociated, the energy block in your body somewhere, is still in exactly the same state as it was when that happened. Because your reptilian brain and your mammalian brain have no capacity to understand time. Time is a cortex. Time is a linear concept. Time only starts existing when you're able to use a brain in a causal fashion. I do this, then that happens. Okay, we've got a timeline. Before that, that doesn't exist. So that's a super important key to understand about these parts of your brain. They do not comprehend time. They do not comprehend time. Second important thing to understand about them is that they are unable to tell the difference between a physical pain that will lead to your physical death and something that's very uncomfortable emotionally. It's too much abstraction to ask of these parts of our brain. They react in real time. They are always in real time. There is no before and after. There's just right now. And on top of that, there's not only is there just right now, but there's like nothing else. There's nothing else that's possible. How profound is it for us to be able to go and meet these crystallized energies in us and actually release them, because they are still stuck there. They are still stuck looping and re-experiencing whatever it is that they went through. And beyond that, they are unable to understand the difference between this is killing me from this feels really, really uncomfortable. So we've got these parts of our brain that are kind of like trying to avoid dying, trying to avoid whatever discomfort will make them feel like they're about to die. And we're walking around as adults trying to like function in the world with these programs screaming all the time. When we're looking at that defense structure, that outer, the inner, the wound, and then the core star energy, that outer defense structure is kind of like that matured version of your defense structure that has a lot of cortex energy going on in it. It's like, yeah, I got it. I understand the world is like this, it's like that. These guys are like this, that's like this. And if I need to do this and I need to do that, then I'm going to be safe. Okay, fine. That inner defense structure, we have re-accessed the limbic brain. Because if you remember what I was telling you last month, that inner defense structure is completely irrational and completely emotional. That's the one that's like, you always do that. You never stop doing that. It's the one that has a complete emotional meltdown. That is the inner defense structure. And we've created an outer defense structure around that to not have to let people see that. So that's what we're going to play with tonight. It's just a different way to understand that inner defense structure. The outer defense we'll have a little bit more fun with next month. I'm going to keep going deeper. I'm going to start talking about character structures next month. And that's 5 core wounds, the 5 main character structures that we developed to cope and survive with these wounds. But tonight I want to really hone in to the reptilian brain. So I want to explain to you something that's very, very, very cool to understand. It's something that was brought to us by the Enneagram and the understanding of subtypes, the subtypes in the Enneagram. And basically, between 0 and 6 years old, you're mostly functioning from the reptilian brain. That's the most important part of your brain that's active at that time. And I want to do a little parenthesis, not a big one, but just a little parenthesis. In our developmental process, how our brain develops from 0 to 7, we are kind of like developing our physical body, understanding how to move with it, understanding how to grab things, how to run, how to this, how to that, how to eat, how to, Then from 7 to 14, we are developing the emotional body more and more, how we're interacting with others, like when I do this, that happens, or, playground playing kind of thing, like starting to understand how to manipulate as well. That's part of that period. And then 14 to 21, we go into like full mental cortex. We start layering everything with concept and ideas and opinions and judgments. So from 0 to 21 is like the most important part of our growth as a human. Root chakra, 0 to 7, sacral chakra, 7 to 14, solar plexus chakra, 14 to 21. But within the first 7 years, within that first period of time, you have a mini version of these 3. You have a mini version of your physical, like your understanding of how to keep yourself physically safe, a basic understanding of how to keep yourself emotionally safe, and a basic understanding of how to keep yourself safe at a mental level, which is a social level. And based on when your core trauma or core wounds happen between 0 and 6, 7 years old, you can have a really good idea of which one of the main reptilian instincts, survival instincts, is the one that predominates for you. So there's fight, there's flight, and there's freeze. Okay? Fight, flight, freeze. Any lizard you look at will demonstrate these 3 for you. They will either fight, they will run away, or they will play dead. So what that looks like for us is someone that has had their core trauma between 0 and 2 years old will have a predominance of the freeze energy. Like that it's kind of like, and what that leads to as an adult, you can recognize the types of behaviors that you have that will help you grasp which one of the 3 basic instincts you lean into more than another. It doesn't mean you don't have the other ones, but there's one you lean into more than the others. Between 0 and 2, the freeze instinct is the most important one. You're so small, there's no way you're going to be able to run away. There's no way you're going to be able to fight back. So you're just kind of like freeze. From 2 to 4 years old is when the fight impulse develops the most. And we call this one the intimacy instinct. What it looks like in a child is the child starts having the experience of like, that's my mom. I run away from my mom. I go away from her, and then I come back and she takes me back in her arms. And then I leave and I come back, she takes me back in her arms. And that's how that intimacy instinct develops properly. When we have a core trauma at that level, our intimacy instinct isn't functioning properly. And that leads to an excess in the fight instinct. So that doesn't mean you fight with people all the time, but I'll give you examples of what each of these mean after. Then If it is between 4 and 6 to 7 years old that you had your core wounding, it is your social instinct that has been affected the most. Because in that miniature of the, the physical body, the emotional body, and the mental body, being social, like outside of just your mom and your dad and your family, being social is when you start entering the mental field, because it's through the mental field that you interact with other people, right? You're interacting with their minds. You're interacting with people that aren't your immediate family. So when it's called the l'instinct grégaire in French. It's like it's your sociality instinct. So 0 to 2, physical survival instinct. That's when the core wounding happened, you have a tendency to use the freeze mechanism more than the fight or the flight. If the core wounding is between 2 and 4 and involves your intimate contact with people that you love and take care of you and nurture you, then you tend to have an overdeveloped fight instinct. And if the core wounding happens between 4 and 7, which is when you start kind of like developing your sociality, going out there and talking with people that aren't your immediate family, and et cetera, et cetera. If the wounding happens at that time, it's the flight mechanism that gets the most. It's like the volume's a little bit too loud on it. So what that looks like, people that tend, I'm in the freeze gang personally. Like sometimes they call it fawn as well, because it's not just freeze, like you don't move anymore. You kind of like freeze, but you kind of look normal and you look like you're still functioning, but inside you're completely frozen. So they call it fawn. So it's an interesting kind of like a development they've understood about the freeze mechanism. People that have the predominance of the freeze mechanism are people that can spend a lot of time meditating. They can spend a lot of time at home. They love reading books. They love being calm. They avoid situations that are too like noisy or social. They have difficulty with situations that are too intimate and intense with someone else. That's the freeze gang. The fight gang are people that love passion and like deep, intimate contact with someone else, and like, like a big debate over a candlelit supper, and like fighting and then fucking, and like, just that kind of like, like. But they're also people that they're go-getters. They go out in the world and they do things, and they're like, you don't get nothing for free. You got to go get it. They do, then they think they, most of the time, these people are prized in society. People are like, wow, that guy's so productive and he's so efficient. He gets so much shit done. And meanwhile, they're like literally volume super loud in their energy of fight. And they live in this map of reality where they have to go out in the world and fight to get what they want. So it's very interesting, the intimacy instinct when the volume's too loud, what it looks like in other ways. And then the flight mechanism, when that one's the volume's too loud, these are people that travel way too much. They're just always moving. It's like they can't stay somewhere more. They move all the time. They have to change apartments once every year. They constantly flee feeling anything in them by doing something. Often they're the ones that have the most addictions, not just to drugs, but to social media, to, going out with friends, to watching TV, to like, they're constantly trying to run away from being with themselves. And one of the most easy places to do that is in society. You go out in the world and you do things and you meet people and you go to big gatherings and you make big suppers. And so I want to talk a little bit about this because it's an incredible thing to understand. When you study subtypes in Enneagram, they give you super cool examples of that. They're like, okay, so if you're, they give 2 examples that I remember that were really cool. One is a perfect evening. Now, the perfect evening for someone that their subtype is the freeze, the physical survival one. A perfect evening with their mate Okay. So for them, it would be sitting on the couch all evening, reading separate books and just being together. Just, that sounds like the most awesome evening ever. You're in the same room and you're doing separate things and you're happy to be in the same room together, but you have no need to be interacting. So clearly, if you have another one of the instincts, that sounds like horrible. But to the survival instinct, that sounds awesome. So the one that's more governed by the intimacy instinct, a perfect evening would be like a candlelight supper, with a rose, and you made the meal that your lover loves the most, and you have a passionate conversation about this trip you want to take, and then you make love and everything's fine and blah, blah, blah. The kids have been sent to the babysitter and all that stuff. And then for the one that's more governed by the social instinct, a perfect evening with their mate would be, let's go out and dance with other people. Like I'm looking at Kimmy and I'm thinking about ecstatic dance or something. Let's go do something together in a group. So it's super interesting because we might think whichever one is our default is completely normal, but to the other ones that's not their default, that's like hell. So they're, oh my God, no, I don't want to do that. People that are really into the intimacy, passionate thing, they don't really enjoy big groups of people. And they certainly don't enjoy if you're going to be reading a book on the couch with them and not even talking to them. So that's one example. Another example that was in one of the books that was really good was the perfect version of a move, when you're moving from an apartment and so for the person that's governed by the survival instinct, they will personally pack everything. The boxes will be color coordinated. Everything will be clearly explained and instructed so that when the movers arrive, they know exactly what goes where and in which rooms they will be putting that. The one governed by the intimacy instinct will be like, let's go to Cuba for a week and let the movers take care of the whole thing. And then the ones that are more the social instinct will be like, let's get a 2-4, let's get a couple of pizzas, let's get a whole bunch of friends over, and let's just do the move together and have a whole bunch of fun. Okay, so I'm gonna let you know right now, I'm part of the first subtype. That sounds like hell. Like, I will color coordinate all my boxes. I don't want a bunch of drunk people moving all my shit around. Like, and I certainly won't leave to go to Cuba for a week while it's going on. Like, so, so that's what I want to share with you tonight as information. I want you to consider which one of these instincts is your go-to, because there's one of these three that is your natural setting. It's got the volume on a little bit louder. It doesn't mean you don't have access to the other ones, but that's where some kind of core trauma happened between 0 and 2, between 2 and 4, between 4 and 7. And tonight, I want to focus the meditation almost completely on the brainstem, just working on the brainstem and helping to kind of clear some of the patterns and the programs out of the brainstem. So, okay, there's more I want to say about this because it's such a vast subject and I love talking about this. And I don't know about you, but my brainstem is already reacting to what I'm talking about. You have to remember that these parts of you, your brainstem and your limbic brain, they are working 24/7, even while you're sleeping, to ensure your physical safety and your emotional security. They never, ever stop working, ever. They are your ultimate allies. They are your ultimate guardians. They're there all the time. We just need to give them, we need to extract from them the programs that are keeping them in a reactive state so that they can actually respond in real time to things going on, not to the program from 35 years ago that they don't understand is 35 years ago. They think it's right now. And yeah, I've got 2 different ways I want to go about this tonight. There might be a bit of campfire. We'll see. Because there's 3 other, there's more coming in now. So Just take a couple of seconds now to ponder. What is your goal? What is your default? What is your default instinct? If something is stressing you out, what is the default actions you're going to go into? Are you going to go hide in your house and just kind of like calm down? Are you going to really need to have someone to talk to about it? Or are you or do you tend to need to go out, do something else and just changer les idées, like just do something to stop thinking about it, kind of thing? These are showing you, these three completely different behaviors are showing you which of the three core instincts you tend to work with the most. So I will start going into the meditation. We're going to play a little bit with the core star as well. If you need to do anything to get comfortable, glass of water, go to the bathroom, anything you need right now, please take the time to do it. And I'm just going to start channeling the energies because they're already coming in. And we will start in a couple of minutes. For whoever is listening to this on YouTube, if you want to join us and actually do this work with us, there's information below the video and how you can reach out to me.